So today we have a 2006 GMC Canyon. It has 209,000 kilometers. Check engine light is on, but it's not here for that. It's here because the four-wheel drive is not working. If I select 4 high, it just flashes. I'm going to turn the key off and see if I can hear the transfer case motor running. I can hear something running. That could be the front axle. It's too high. Well, we'll throw the scanner on this thing and see if there's any fault codes in the transfer case controls, if it even supports that. So I've ID'd the vehicle already. I'm going to go into transfer case, check it for codes. Current codes, no codes. History codes, no codes. Okay, so let's have a look at data here and see what's going on. The functional tests, two-wheel drive indicator, those lights work. Need to engage front axle. That's the sound we heard. Can't hear anything over my furnace running now. Okay, let's see if where's data? No data. Well, we're lucky we got codes. No data. Code tips. Okay. Now, let's look at symptom tips here. Driving problems, shifting problems. When you try to put it in 4 high, 4 low, and I didn't try low, then the selection indicator will flash. Transfer to switch correctly, but the front axle will not lock it up. There are no codes in the system. The scanner can communicate, command the front shift motor, but it will retract after 5 seconds. 2-4 indicator switch is faulty. Well, it's going to make it interesting to diagnose with no data. I'll have a look at troubleshooting in the OEM information. Okay, so right now, transfer case is in two-wheel drive. Front axle is not connected. Turn the front drive shaft. I got the main transmission in neutral, so I can turn the drive shaft. So I'm going to have an assistant put it into four-wheel drive high. I have an assistant in the truck, and we're going to listen. I got to wait for the stupid compressor to shut off. Okay, so this is the front axle connect motor, and right now it is not connected. Okay, put it in 4 high. Well, I hear the transfer case motor engage, but I didn't hear the front axle disconnect motor engage. And it's in four-wheel drive now. Let's turn the back drive shaft, and the front drive shaft turns with it. So the transfer case is going into four-wheel drive. I don't think this motor is working. Let's see if we can command it with the scan tool. Okay, so I'm going to use the bidirectional control in the scan tool to engage the front axle, and we should be able to hear it. Well, I heard it. Let's see if it's engaged now. Yes, it is. I'm turning the front drive shaft and it turns. So why doesn't it engage? When I command the transfer case, or put the transfer case in 4 high. So let's see. The front axle engages. You can hear it. And the four-wheel drive goes, the transfer case works as well. So there must be something on the transfer case that tells the front shaft lock mechanism to lock up. We can command it on. And there's no codes. Let's have a look at the electrical diagram. So here's the troublemaker chart for the front axle will not engage. Install the scan tool, turn the ignition on with the scan tool command, the locked and unlocked. Does it lock and unlock? Yes, it does. So we jumped ahead to step 9. Inspect the front axle for a mechanical malfunction. No, I don't think it's got a mechanical malfunction. What's column is no. Okay, so 9, go to 13. Next page. Replace the front axle switch actuator. Really? That doesn't make sense. Just said it worked. Let me check that again. With the scan tool, command the front axle unlocked and locked. Does the front axle turn on and off with each command? Yes. Go to step 9. Step 9. Inspect the front axle for a mechanical malfunction. If there isn't any, go to step 13. Step 13. Replace the front axle switch actuator. I'm going to look at the diagram. So here's the electrical diagram for the front axle actuator, and it does contain a switch with multiple poles in it. I wonder if that switch is malfunctioning and reporting that it's in the wrong position. There's no data. This transfer case control module does not support data, and it doesn't set fault codes, so there's no codes to go by. I would suggest that this axle switch signal, which is black-white wire, it's got to have voltage on it at some time, because it comes from this 15 amp fuse. I don't know if that fuse is the same one that's used to power this. It must be. Yeah, it must be the same one that's used to power this. So let's put a voltmeter on that black-white wire coming out of the front axle disconnect and see what kind of voltage we have on there. So I'm back pinning that black-white wire at the front axle motor, and it's unlocked right now, and I read 0.01 volts on that wire. I'm going to use the scan tool to command the axle to lock, and it goes to 10.28, and it's physically locked because the front drive shaft is turning. Command it off. Let's command it off again. And it's locking and unlocking just fine. Yet the four-wheel drive indicator light on the dash doesn't show it's in four-wheel drive. It's interesting. Well, I'm a bit confused here. The axle switch signal is coming out of there, so maybe it's not getting to the actual module, and because there's no data, we'll have to go right to the module and see if that voltage is actually getting there. But it's not commanding it to shift into 4 high and not the front axle lock up. Now I don't know how this motor is illustrated. See, that circuit is shown open right now. Damn. Troubleshooting chart is pretty vague. They're assuming that there's no problems with these wires, unless a problem with the wire would set a fault code, but I can't see how. It's a simple switch. It's either going to have 12 volts on it or it isn't. So this is a bit confusing. I don't want to throw a front axle actuator at it, although that might be what we end up doing. So I'm going to look for this transfer case control module. Shows a nice picture where the front axle actuator is. Shows me a picture of the 4x4 control. Beautiful. And there's the transfer case control module. Excuse me, engineers, but where the is that? Obviously it's in the cab someplace. Wow. Useless diagrams. Oh well. So I decided to search for a case on Identifix. Here's a case. Very similar. Indicator flashes four-wheel drive high and four-wheel drive low. Front axle will power the black-white wire, which was when the front axle is engaged, but it doesn't do that. It says to check the gray wire at pin 11 in the 20 cavity connector at the transfer case control module. This wire should be grounded in neutral. If voltage is low, disconnect the transfer case and neutral switch on the transfer case. Verify the accessory switch indicates the correct range and gear of the transfer case. If okay, replace the transfer case neutral switch. I'm going to look at the schematic again. So there is a two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch up here on the side of the transfer case, just above the drive shaft, and then below it down here, there's a neutral switch. Now I backpinned the two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch, and it shows 12.47 volts, and it doesn't change state. It's in four-wheel drive now. Put it in too high again, and as you can see, it doesn't change state, but the transfer case is switching, so I think this switch is defective. And if it doesn't indicate that the shift took place, then the transfer case control module won't energize the front axle to lock up the front axle. If I manually lock it up with the scan tool, the four-wheel drive works, so I'm leaning towards this switch. I wonder what would happen if I ground this wire. That should simulate what the switch does when it's in 4 high. I'm going to try grounding that wire. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. When I backpin this switch, this two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch, I show about 12 volts on the wire, and it should go to ground when it's in four-wheel drive according to everything I've read, and it does not. But I'm sure that that switch is defective. The transfer case is physically going into four-wheel drive, but it won't stay in there because this switch is not indicating it. It's not setting any codes. There's no data to view. The troubleshooting chart says replace the front axle actuator, but I'm sure there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm going to order up this switch, and we're going to plug it in and try it and see what happens. So this is the two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch out of the transfer case. I can make it work by grounding the wire at the switch. I could make the front axle lock up. So this input to the transfer case control module is not changing state. The switch simply grounds. So I'm going to connect an ohm meter across it and check continuity through the switch. So I got an ohm meter connected across here, and I'm reading 40 ohms on the screen here. Come on, focus. Oh, camera doesn't want to focus. And if I press this button in, it should indicate 0, and it doesn't. So this switch has failed internally. It's a shame that that diagnostic flow chart would have had you changing the front axle actuator for nothing. Good thing I was suspicious that it was wrong. I haven't been able to find a source for this aftermarket switch or as an aftermarket part, but I'm going to try tomorrow. So I was able to obtain a previously enjoyed switch from another transfer case at the recycling yard. It's actually only available from GM, part number 98181804, and it's about 150 bucks, but it's 4 or 5 days away. So I've got a used one here, and I've got it plugged into the ohm meter, and you can see it's reading 0.15 ohms, and when I press the button, it goes infinite. So with the ball extended, it should be close to 0, and with the ball depressed, it goes to infinite. So we're going to put it in the transfer case now, and I'm confident that it's going to it's going to work. See, the transfer case control module needs to see that switch change state to indicate that the transfer case actually went into four-wheel drive. And when it sees that, then it energizes the front axle actuator, and then the switch in the front axle actuator is a feedback to the transfer case module that the front axle engaged, and then the indicator light on the dash would stop flashing, indicating 4 high. So we're going to put it in the transfer case and see if it works. So there's the used switch installed. The gray connector is the upper one, and that is for the two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive switch. One of these wires will be 12 volts with the key on from the actual transfer case controller. The other wire is ground. So if you backpin the 12 volt wire, and when the transfer case switches to four-wheel drive, it should go to 0. And it wasn't doing that. So again, we're going to try it now. It should work. So now the moment of truth. It's in, key is on, engine's not running, it's in 2. I'm going to switch it to 4 by pressing the 4 high button. You can hear the transfer case switch first, and then the front axle actuator connect second. And of course the indicator is on solid, indicating that it's in four-wheel drive. Back to two-wheel drive. So it's working fine. That's it. Thanks for watching.